In this video, we're going to talk through what I consider to be one of the most frustrating stone settings I've ever come across, the channel setting. The idea behind this setting is to essentially create a small box with two parallel wires on top and two parallel wires underneath all of our individual stones. I have made videos on channel setting in the past, but this is one of the topics that continuously comes up to go over in our Patreon live stream sessions, so I figured I would go ahead and do another video on them today. If you're really struggling with these settings, just know you're not alone. I honestly think that this is probably one of the most frustrating wire settings I've ever come across. But hopefully, with today's video, we can make it a little bit easier. If you'd like to see an even deeper dive into the process of creating channel settings, go ahead and check out the link below for my Patreon. The materials that I'll be using for this project are 4 6-inch lengths of 21 gauge square, 5 feet of 28 gauge round, and a collection of 3mm garnets. When purchasing sterling silver wire, you're given the option between two tempers, dead soft or half hard. For this project, having 2 wires in dead soft and 2 wires in half hard makes it a little bit easier to set the stones while keeping our setting neat. I'm starting with 4 wires, all dead soft, and I'll show you how to harden 2 of the wires instead of purchasing in 2 tempers. I'm going to start with taking one of my squares and clamping it firmly in my parallel pliers. Next, I'm going to take my nylon tipped pliers and pull down the wire, putting a kink into the square as we go. This will cause the wire to bend and harden as we go. I'm going to continue switching directions in which way I curve it several times for each wire. Once I've repeated this process several times, I can pull straight out away from my original plier to straighten the wire back to the beginning. Once I've hardened 2 of the wires, I am going to go ahead and mark them by putting a kink into the end of the wire so I can tell the difference between them and our dead soft variants. I'm going to begin our weave by coiling the end of my 28 gauge around one of our hardened squares. Next, we'll take both of our soft squares, place those next, and then finally our second hardened square on the outside edge. From here, I'm going to coil 10 times around all 4 wires. Once I have my coils around all 4 wires, I'm going to place it in a clamp to hold all of my wires in place while we begin the weave. Our first step will be to bend both of our center 2 wires, our soft squares, 90 degrees down away from the surface of our element. Now that they're bent straight towards the back, we're going to bend them both 90 degrees out to either side. One more step before beginning our actual weave pattern. We're going to bring both of these squares back parallel directly underneath our other square. If we were to be staring down the barrel of our element, we should have all four of our squares set up similar to this. Our stones will then be placed in the center of this channel. Our 28 gauge will be woven underneath our stones, holding these wires together into place, giving our stones something to sit on. Our 28 gauge here will be woven into a simple figure 8 pattern. If we can imagine that these are our bottom 2 wires that we'll be weaving onto, we're going to do 5 coils around each side before crossing over. This will create triangles with plenty of space for our stone to sink down into the weave. Let's go ahead and put it into practice. I'm going to bring my 28 gauge around the outside edge and start with our 5 coils around my bottom rightmost wire. I am right-handed, so it's easiest for me to work from left to right. If you're left-handed, it may be easiest to bring it over to our left wire on the bottom. Once I have these 5 coils around, I'm going to bring it so it goes underneath the opposite side's square. Rotating this whole structure makes it easier for me to continue to work from left to right. I'm going over the top of what is currently my left bottom square here, and I'm going to go in between my 2 squares here. Let's do our 5 coils around before continuing the pattern. With 5 coils around, we're going to go over the top of that wire, rotating so that my structure is once again working from left to right, bringing in between my 2 bottom wires so that we continue that figure 8 before adding 5 coils around our rightmost wire. Once I have my 5 coils, we'll rotate again so we can add the 5 to our opposite side. It is quite small here on the camera, but you can see those little triangles, just like our drawing, where the pointy part of the stone, the culet, will actually sink down into our woven section, helping to secure the stone into place. Let's go ahead and set our first stone. I went ahead and slid my stone in between our two sections of wire. My soft squares here are on the bottom with our 28 gauge, and my hardened squares here are on the top. I brought both layers parallel to each other once again, and applied light pressure so that the culet of the stone will sink into our weave, helping to secure it into place. Without even pinching my top wires to the bottom wires, it's already securely holding my stone in place. This will make it much easier than if we were to try to balance the stone on the tip of the culet. This is where our pattern gets slightly more complicated. To secure our top wires to our bottom wires, we need to change up the pattern slightly. In between each stone, we'll repeat this exact process. If I start on my bottom right here, we'll bring it around the outside edge of the bottom, straight across and around the top, around my bottom here, straight across once again, and back to our starting position. Let's go ahead and put this weave into practice. Starting on my right side, we're going to come straight across the middle and around the outside edge of our top left square. It's coming straight here, all the way to the top left, and then back down to the bottom, underneath our bottom square here. We're going to come around the bottom outside edge here, straight to the opposite corner. We'll then cross back through so that we're back to our starting position underneath the bottom right wire. With our first stone locked into place, we can go back to our figure 8 weave on just the bottom 2 wires. Once our weave is prepared for our next stone, we can go ahead and slide it in between our 2 sections of wire. let's do this weave staring down the barrel to make it a little bit easier for you to see. We're going to start here on the top right, bringing it around the top, straight across to the opposite edge. We'll then circle around the outside on the left here and do the same on that side. Straight to the opposite edge, pulling it back in, and then back to our starting position. I went ahead and set my third stone and made the weave for our fourth and final stone. Before setting our stone, we're going to go ahead and bend our square wires back into place. Once I've slid my stone into place, we can bend both of our center two wires back down to their original starting position. To secure everything into place, we'll go back to coiling around all 4 wires with our 28 gauge round. And here we have our finished setting. From here we can go ahead and continue to coil our 28 gauge around all 4 of our squares, or separate them for different elements. A special thank you goes out to all of the names on the screen for supporting this channel through Patreon. What I am doing would not be possible without your support. If you're interested in helping support the channel, follow the link in the description below this video. If you found this video helpful, leave me a like on the video. This helps me a lot with the visibility of my videos and YouTube's algorithms. To be the first to know when I upload new content, go ahead and subscribe to my channel and hit the bell to be notified when new videos are available. Thank you for watching, and happy rapping.